The story of Christianity in Japan begins in 1549, a pivotal year marked by the arrival of Francis Xavier, a Jesuit missionary from Spain. Xavier, along with his fellow missionaries, landed in Kagoshima on the southern island of Kyushu. Their arrival heralded the beginning of what would be known as the Christian century in Japan, a period extending roughly from 1549 to 1640. Francis Xavier's mission in Japan was not just a religious endeavor, but also a cultural exchange. He, along with other Jesuits, sought to understand the Japanese culture and language, an approach that significantly differed from the forceful methods often employed in the conversion efforts in other parts of the world. Xavier's respectful approach enabled him to gain an audience with influential figures of the time, including daimyo, feudal lords, and other nobility. Christianity spread rapidly in Japan, particularly in Kyushu. The message of Christianity, with its emphasis on salvation and equality in the eyes of God, appealed to many, especially those who felt marginalized within the strict hierarchical structure of Japanese society. The new religion was also seen as a gateway to lucrative trade and diplomatic relations with European countries, a factor that made it attractive to several daimyo. Some daimyo, such as Omura Sumitada, were among the first to convert to Christianity. These conversions were partly influenced by political and economic motives, as the daimyo sought to establish advantageous trade relations with the Portuguese and other European powers. The Christian daimyo were instrumental in promoting the religion within their domains, offering protection to missionaries, allowing the construction of churches, and sometimes even actively encouraging their subjects to convert. The missionary efforts were bolstered by the establishment of schools and seminaries, which played a crucial role in spreading Christian teachings. The Jesuits in particular were known for their educational institutions, which attracted many young Japanese, including members of the samurai class. These schools were not only centers of religious education, but also hubs for the exchange of Western knowledge, including science and medicine. This period was also marked by a significant cultural and religious exchange. The missionaries introduced aspects of Western culture, art and technology, which were received with curiosity and enthusiasm by the Japanese. Despite the initial success, Christianity in Japan was not without its challenges. The rapid spread of the religion, combined with the increasing influence of the missionaries, began to raise concerns among some Japanese leaders. They feared the loss of traditional values and the growing political power of Christian daimyos, which would eventually lead to a backlash against the religion. The initial period of relative tolerance towards Christianity in Japan began to wane as the Tokugawa Shogunate came into power in the early 17th century. This era marked a significant turning point as the shogunate's attitude towards Christianity shifted from indifference and mild curiosity to suspicion and active suppression. Tokugawa Ieyasu, the founder of the Tokugawa Shogunate, initially tolerated Christian activities largely for the benefits of trade with Europeans. However, his attitude changed as he began to perceive Christianity as a potential threat to the stability and order of his newly unified Japan. One of the primary concerns was the political threat posed by the increasing number of Christian daimyo and their growing allegiance to foreign powers, particularly the Portuguese and Spanish. The shogunate feared that these Christian feudal lords might prioritize their religious bonds over their loyalty to the shogunate, potentially leading to insurrection or foreign intervention. The Shimabara Rebellion, 1637-1638, a major uprising largely led by Christian peasants and ronin, masterless samurai, was a pivotal event that intensified the shogunate's resolve to ban Christianity. This rebellion, although driven by a myriad of grievances including high taxes and famine, was seen as a direct consequence of Christian influence and further convinced the Tokugawa rulers of the religion's destabilizing potential. In response to these perceived threats, the Tokugawa shogunate issued a series of edicts that progressively banned Christian activities. Missionaries were expelled, Japanese Christians were ordered to renounce their faith, and severe penalties were imposed on those who defied these orders. The ban was enforced through various means, including the infamous Fumi-e test, where suspected Christians were forced to trample on images of Christ or the Virgin Mary as a proof of their renunciation of the faith. The suppression of Christianity coincided with the Sakoku policy, under which Japan isolated itself from the outside world. This policy not only restricted foreign trade and interaction, but also aimed to eliminate foreign cultural and religious influences, particularly Christianity. The isolation further solidified the ban on the religion and cut off Japanese Christians from the rest of the Christian world. These underground believers, who would later be known as the Kakure Kirishitan, practiced their religion in secret, away from the prying eyes of the authorities. Women played a crucial role in preserving the Christian faith during this period of persecution. As the primary educators of children in the household, they were often responsible for passing on the Christian faith to future generations, all the while maintaining a facade of compliance with the state's religious edicts. The Kakure Kirishitan developed ingenious methods to conceal their faith. Their religious practices evolved to become a blend of Christian and Japanese elements, a syncretism that allowed them to worship undetected. They adapted Christian prayers to sound like Buddhist chants and transformed Christian icons into semblances of Buddhist or Shinto deities. This amalgamation of religious symbols and practices was essential for their survival. Kakure Kirishitan communities conducted their worship in hidden rooms or in the remote countryside. They developed a system of secret signs and codes to identify fellow believers and to conduct their rituals safely. Ritual objects were often disguised as everyday items. Devoid of written scriptures, the Kakure Kirishitan relied heavily on oral traditions to pass down their beliefs. Stories from the Bible were retold in a way that resonated with the Japanese context, often merging with local folklore and mythologies. This oral tradition helped preserve the core tenets of Christianity, albeit altered over generations due to the lack of formal religious education. In 1873, the Japanese government officially lifted the ban on Christianity, a move that came as part of the broader Meiji-era reforms aimed at modernizing Japan. This newfound religious freedom allowed Christians to practice their faith openly for the first time in more than 2 centuries. As the ban was lifted, the Kakure Kirishitan cautiously began to reveal their hidden faith. The revelation that there were still practicing Christians in Japan, after hundreds of years of suppression, was astonishing to both the Japanese authorities and foreign observers.